or else right over there. Welcome back. It has been almost 2 months with my last upload happening on April 1st, April Fool's Day. And so, with that, I am just very excited to be back. Definitely had quite a bit going on in my life that I was just trying to get together, but certainly content creation was a goal of mine in 2025, and so I definitely want to get the train back on the rails and to keep on moving in terms of trying to spread my perspective out there and trying to contribute to making the world a better place on the basis of what it is that I believe in, what it is that I'd like to see, the change I'd like to see in the world, and to try to advocate for that through this channel, through a mixture of talking about some videos on the fundamental mechanics of interpersonal interaction, people, life, etc., and also doing a content reaction, which you are watching right now. So, with that being said, there definitely is the YouTube channel. In fact, let's make that way bigger. So the It Be What It Be podcast, and we currently, if I even refresh this page, having this live stream. We are live on Beware the Consequences of Not Pretending. With that, what I have in store for us today is, and as you can see, the channel is still up and kicking. But yes, the last video would have been well, 2 months ago, would have been on April 1st, almost 2 months ago. But that being said, what I have for you for in store for you today is going to be in relation to a content creator that I'm going to be covering. And this content creator is someone that I've been watching pretty recently by the name of Life Outrage. So, Life Outrage on their channel pretty much likes to talk about, ever feel annoyed of being told you're too negative, too depressed to get help. Well, you don't have to feel like that here. I'm here to spread the truth and the reality of this world, no matter how harsh it sounds. And there's a lot that I resonate with a lot of what it is that he has to say, especially looking at his different videos. Now at this point he has 22 videos. He would have started posting his very first video would have been back in, let's say, specifically January 15th. So he's very much so also 2025, and he's managed to be much more successful than myself. And yeah, you can't quite see that. It open the video in the other tab. So let's just bring that one over here where you can see that, yeah, it was January 15th, 2025. And so he's much more successful than myself, and having started at a similar time frame and is at almost 10K subscribers. And yet there's definitely a lot that he talks about that I resonate, but clearly, as you can see, one major difference between him and I is I'm not trying to put my face in it, because at the time we were actually in similar situations. He was unemployed, I was unemployed as well. He came from a toxic job, and I also came from a toxic job as well, that you can see in the how my toxic job broke me video just right over here. And I'm struggling to highlight it, but there we go. And as I was saying, he was unemployed, and he still is unemployed to my understanding. He lives alone, I live alone also. He has a car, I don't. Or whether or not that is even his car, but nonetheless, just to get more so to the point, I am no longer unemployed, but also I personally, now I really mean no shade to him. I just don't. Well, I certainly don't have the willingness to make content like this that's very like anti-capitalist, and that would result in people telling you that you're too negative, too depressed to get help, because that's just going to make it harder for myself to get a job. And it is what it is, essentially, really. And that's interestingly enough, one of what it is that he says in terms of some people say that that's just life, but the name of my podcast, as it were, right over here, right? It is the It Be What It Be podcast. It be what it be. And I'm at a point where, frankly, I don't want to end up homeless, essentially. If I had to choose between pretending and being homeless, I want to pretend frankly, the least amount as possible. And I want to really gauge those situations as to whether or not it's worth it for me to pretend. In a lot of cases, I'd rather just stay quiet. But certainly, if it comes down to it, if push comes to shove, well, I don't really have some sort of other financial backing or someone else to bail me out. Like I said, I'm not living with my parents, among other factors. And so I essentially need to work or DIE, if you will, go homeless, which is it is it's a dotted line, but it's a straight line from that to DIEing, homeless to DIEing. So without further ado, let's take a look into this video.
And you're gonna, I don't know if you ever noticed this. I'm pretty sure a lot of you can relate to this, but when you really think about it in life, to have success in some way, you have to pretend in life. You have to pretend in at least some capacity to succeed in wherever you are, whether it's in school, at a job, anything. You have to pretend, because if you don't pretend, uh, people are going to look down on you.
Yeah, so just that right there, and I'm definitely going to be throwing my face in there for the sake of the copyright. But yeah, absolutely. If you want to have some sort of success, you have to pretend. And I think that there's a lot of issues with this. Like I talked about with Chris Williamson and the toxic compassion of saying what is pleasant to hear in the short term, or what appears to be more pleasant, and what fronts as more pleasant, when I would really say that it's actually not, essentially, in the sense that I would say that it is it's telling someone something that's nice just because of short-term gain, or just to give them a short-term a comfort, or trying to appear as though you are being pleasant, is not actually what's going to be helping out that person in the long run. I've made certain examples, but an example such as someone's failing a test or failing a class. If I don't say something about that, someone's addicted to whatever substance. If I don't say something about that, then me saying, "Oh, don't worry about it," essentially just keep doing what you're doing, is just not going to help that person in the long run, essentially. However, then people can get really upset about that in general, and then they can make your life harder as a result because you didn't make them feel good, essentially.
And you're gonna have to pretend that everything's okay, even when it's not. I mean, think about, for example, like at school, okay, you have a group of friends, and you basically have to pretend that everything's okay, because if you act sad, if you act depressed, you're you're gonna be treated differently. You have
And I've oftentimes said that the the entity that has the utmost of an impact on our lives is the Homo sapien creature, other people. Other people can make our lives that much better and that much worse. So even as he's saying in this example at school, even right there and then, just that in and of itself is enough to really start with the whole having people conform. Otherwise, they could stand out, and that can result in them being treated poorly.
You have to be like in a certain good mood all the time. You have to really put up a front in some way. And it's not that bad in school. It mostly depends on the type of group that you hang out with. But I mean, know some groups out there that will literally like kind of treat a person differently just because they're sad or they're depressed in some way. This is more of an issue.
So I do definitely agree with that as well in terms of it's not as bad in school. In school, the consequences are not essentially existential. Not necessarily. There's you're under 18, so one is under 18, and so that person is not necessarily likely to have negative well, you're not really working, and that there's not really that much to lose at that rate versus when someone's over 18 and then you're working essentially, and a reputation, people are generally also a lot less forgiving as you get older. So your reputation is also going to be a major factor there as well. And it's a lot more existential. I can imagine he's about to say when it comes to work as well. So I'll give him the chance to speak.
Issue that occurs at during at work. You know, like especially corporate jobs. I think this is very specific to corporate jobs, but even regular jobs, you have to at least pretend in some way. Like for example, even already at the interview, you know, you're going to get called for this interview, and this, you know, the person in charge of hiring you, this is going to be
Yeah, absolutely. So, as he was saying, he did mention on in terms of what it's going to be like at work, and I'll let him cook for a bit more.
asking you lots of the all of these really superficial questions, and you're going to have to like pretend that you're like really passionate about this job and say that you've done all the research about the company, and you know all about, you know, different facts about the company, that you have some, like you have to do all this research, all this work to pretend that you're
Yeah, absolutely. So they're going to be asking you, why is it that you want to work here? And they, the company is not necessarily going to be motivated to hire you if you say, I want to work here just for the money, even though that is generally speaking true. Because there certainly are some workplaces that someone would want to work for because they genuinely is a workplace that they want to go to. But even then, there are also just the sense of, if I'm aside from maybe having access to the resources available at that workplace, like if I wanted to work in a cell phone store per se, then they would already have made the investment to have some of these different phones. And I don't need to make that investment per se. However, then if I wanted to work on some sort of other creative project, I don't necessarily need that workplace to do that. And so, what it is that I'm trying to get at is that they don't want to hear in terms of, well, in general, yes, but also it's not going to reward the interviewee if they tell the interviewer that they're there just for the money. They effectively are to talk about how they can help that workplace out and why that makes sense for them in their career and why they're so passionate about the job, doing all of this research, as he's saying. And one of what I believe to be the greatest robberies is that doing work without getting a guaranteed outcome, essentially. And certainly we are not entitled to what the decisions that other people make for us. However, I do think it's a pretty raw deal to try to do a bunch of research on a company or even just any type of endeavor just to do all of this work and then to not necessarily get the job or even a promotion.
You're passionate about where you're like when someone looks for a job, they're going to be applying to so many different places, and every person, every hiring manager is going to expect the same like type of responses from like each job. Like everywhere, they're always going to expect you to be that way, to be super passionate, to be super in on the job. Like it's just, you have to do so much work.
And yeah, I totally whoops, let's see, at least yeah, this one will work too. I totally agree with that too, in the sense that when you're applying to a number of these different jobs, if someone's applying to a number of different jobs, how passionate really are they going to be? If I'm doing what I've heard some people say, a spray and pray, I'm not religious, but nonetheless, I appreciate the what it is that they're trying to get across, do a spray and pray. When someone's trying to do that, it's especially when I was doing it, I'm just like doing this mass apply, the power apply. I've heard a few different ways of saying it. And then if someone gets back to me, then I start to look more into the job and try to be all like, oh yeah, like I know what it is that y'all do and what have you, and so on and so forth, A, B, C, X, Y, Z. So it's not like I was specifically passionate about a particular job, A, and B, even if I was, it would be quite narrow to only focus on that one job. It's not likely that someone's going to get that job, right?
Just to work, just to live, because that's basically the real reason why we want to work. If somebody says, if a hiring manager says, why do you want to work here, you can't just say like because I need money. That's not, they're not going to accept you based on that. You have to pretend, you have to put up a front, you have to make it seem like you're passionate about this job.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's exactly what I was saying as well. It's just not necessarily going to be enough just to be all like, I'm just in it for the money. Now, yet again, someone can be very certainly there's a whole notion of what it is that work has to offer in terms of it gives people the opportunity to develop skills and to learn more about what it can be like to work on the other to be on the other side of a particular interaction. The example that I said about the cell phone store, it can be worthwhile to know about how to repurpose devices, re-imaging them, if you will. That's not necessarily something someone would do unless it was like their own specific hobby or what have you, maybe that they wouldn't necessarily be doing that, and what it can be like to deal with like representatives from different companies and so on and so forth. Like there are experiences that I do think add some merit, but certainly like to a large degree that to what extent am I really going to care about so and so's no name company or even this company that I've never even really heard of, and that it's essentially it's work or go homeless, which is a dotted line but a straight line, right? Straight line to DIEing. So
Even though you're probably not, and you're only in it for the money, which is in most cases the truth for everybody. We all just want to work for money, basically, to survive, to live, because that's the way the world runs. That's how it works in this world, unfortunately. But we just gotta fucking deal with it. And then once you finally get that job,
Yeah, that's it's not necessarily just life, it's capitalism, but capitalism is the global socioeconomic system. I mean, every single country is a mixed economy. A. And so B, then capitalism is certainly going to be the because the most dominant societies are capitalist societies. We're in this Euro-American centric world. Then it effectively means that everywhere around the world is a capitalist society, frankly. So
There's more pretending that's going to happen. Like, you're going to have to make it seem like you're in the best mood ever. You can't just like make it seem like you look depressed or sad, because once you look depressed or you look sad, especially at a corporate job, which is more where I'm talking about here. Because at another regular job, it's not that big of a deal. It might be like a problem, like it's a small problem, but not as big as if you were to act sad or depressed at a corporate job. And then when
in that case, I do disagree with him in the sense that I do think that it would be a big deal at pretty much any job. Most jobs, essentially most. There are going to be some jobs that are lower stakes, essentially. But yes, I would say that it is a big deal at pretty much any job to look to not look sad, to not look depressed, to look like you're grateful and that all is going smooth and dandy in your life.
when you start working there, you have to act super fake as well. Like, you have to do all these good morning, hey, how are you? Good, and you? Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, thanks. It's all you have to pretend, like all these fake positive vibes. I don't believe a single second that everybody is good all the time. You have, like, it's just
Now, for that, to an extent, okay, so first of all, no, I don't believe that everybody is good every single second of every single minute of every single day of every single hour of every single day, and etc., so on and so forth. Just keep on adding the units. I don't believe that, but I do think that the these niceties are not necessarily just superficial per se. I know that there are some people who really don't care. I come to I go from home to work to do the job and then I go home. And certainly, and I do also think that it can be pretty safe to not be sharing some of your more some of your stronger opinions, especially if they are outside of the Overton window. Definitely do think that there is some merit there because then who knows who you may offend, and that person can either just make the workplace harder for you, or who knows how petty they are or the extent to which they handle conflict resolution. They may want to retaliate on you, be passive aggressive, start teasing you and giving you shit for that, essentially, in other ways, coming after you and your values and your interests and trying to just undermine you in these different ways and saying, oh, it's just a joke, and be a bro or something about it or what have you as well. And I do think that it can be nice to ask people like, hey, how are you and what have you. But certainly, yeah, not everyone's good all the time. But at the same time, saying that you're not good to people that you don't necessarily trust, then it's like who knows who's going to be spreading around your business and what have you, and who knows who's going to be repeating what it is that you would have said to them to other people, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I do think that there is risk that's involved in that, and certainly some people just don't care, which I do think is unfortunate. I do wish that people did care more, but it's also that just because you may be someone who is more caring in that regard doesn't mean that the other person is. And so you say to them, "Oh, like I I lost my one of my credit cards over the weekend," and then they just start to think that you're less competent, for example, instead of like being empathetic to your situation, for example.
It makes me sick that I was surrounded by all these people that were just like, good morning, hello, good, and you, how are you, like it's just so fucking annoying. Like I couldn't stand like people like pretending, being so fake. Like I was just, in my head I was just like, cut the bullshit, guys. It's just, why is this normalized where we have to be like, hello, how are you, I'm fine, you. I feel like every time I witness an
Yeah, 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 definitely with some people. There'd be people who I'd ask them, I remember, "Yeah, what have you been up to? What are you looking forward to tonight?" and what have you, and it's as if their life was just they come to work, they go home, and they go to sleep. Now, maybe they didn't wanna say much about what it is that they had going on in their lives, maybe. Maybe they didn't wanna say that, but it just seemed very boring and dry in a lot of those cases, and that there wasn't really as much to even talk about per se. Now, he also has said in some of his videos that he feels somewhat of a pressure to have exciting plans every weekend, and sure, some weekends are gonna be quiet, other weekends are not gonna be, depending on who you are, your lifestyle, and what have you. And I think a quiet weekend can be just that. I don't think that somebody did absolutely nothing all weekend. You would have watched a show, you would have eaten some food or something like that. Yeah, at least, so there's just the I think that there is some more substance to talk about in that regard. Yeah, I just get the certain kind of vibe from him. I certainly don't like the pretending for sure, but I somewhat get the vibe from him that the vibe. I get the impression that he just doesn't quite care as much about what his colleagues are up to per se. So I do think that's unfortunate, but nonetheless, let's see what he has to say.
interaction like that, like, or somebody says it to me, I feel like we're just all fucking robots. We're like programmed to say, hi, good morning, how are you? Good, and you? Like, it's just so fake. It's so shallow. And, you're not expected to say, you can't expect some, if you say that, if somebody says, how are you?
So definitely just right there. Certainly, yeah, it's shallow, and that relates to what it is that I was saying before. That I would like to be able to at least have more of a conversation. It doesn't need to be extremely personal, but like, yeah, you maybe watched a show, you maybe cooked some food, maybe you went to the market or what have you, so on and so forth. Like, there's more that people can say. There's just more to say, but nonetheless, I like where he's about to go next.
You and you say, oh, I'm okay, or I'm not feeling well. It's because you can't even fucking say that, because people expect you to say I'm good and there is no other option for these types of people. Like, you have to say that you are good, or otherwise, like, it's going to be awkward for them. They won't know what to say, because you have to pretend that everything's fine. There was also this situation.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 pretty much. Yeah, it's necessary. Like, it's they don't really know, the other people don't really know how to handle that, or they're not expecting it, they're not prepared for that. And generally, and this could be, I know that this guy is in America, and I certainly am also from the West as well. And in my experience with, I've talked about indirect societies as well. And basically, to get to the point, it's almost like people don't actually wanna know how you are. It's just a superficial nicety that we do, and it's like, if if you don't do that, then you've disrupted the flow. You've been emotionally inconsiderate to these people. You've been borderline autistic, essentially, to respond authentically, or to even saying that you're okay is not good enough. I do think that that's pretty messed up, but
where I never said to anybody, I tried to keep to myself as much as possible when it comes to work. And I guess my previous boss noticed that I didn't look happy or something, and he calls me to his office, even though I always say that I'm doing fine, I'm doing good. He probably noticed my facial expression, I guess.
so there you go. In terms of he tries to keep to himself as much as possible at work. I only tend to notice that I do that if I don't really like the other people that I'm working with, essentially, and that has been something that I've been through. But then it's as if I have to be a part of company culture or whatever, and that is just yeah, going to work, doing your job, and going home in that regard isn't enough. If I'm not getting along with the people, I don't like the other people that I'm working with, essentially. It's like I'm not allowed to not like them, essentially, that's a problem. So, even if I am bringing in like good beneficial results to the company, it's not good enough.
And what happened was I was stupid enough to trust him with my feelings, even though we shouldn't really say how we actually feel to anybody at work, because, like you guessed it, my boss actually used it against me. Yep, I explained to him that I wasn't feeling well, all that stuff, about work, about the
Yeah, I think it's very unfortunate in that regard. I don't really like the not an indictment against this guy, but I don't really like the notion of associating intelligence with being transparent in that regard, right? I just don't really like that, and it can whatever you say can be yeah used against you, even like for people that you think are some of your friends, but maybe the last conversation that you had really upset them, and then you say to them something like that. Try to open up to your friends because either you're supposed to be able to tell your friends about the hardships in your life, and then they use that against you, right? So because that's the way that they handle their conflict resolution. If there's some sort of like conflict, then they basically try to retaliate against you because they're so mad and upset and hurt by what it is that you may have said to them that wasn't even directed towards them intentionally, but that goes back down to like sharing a strong opinion or sharing a position that you may be particularly opinionated about. It can have those types of consequences. So certainly, yeah, at work, I could imagine what he's about to say.
this job, and and then right after that conversation, like I felt like I was targeted. I was targeted in every way. I was being micromanaged for a short period after that, and then uh, lots of like incidents where I could tell my boss was trying to find ways to make me want to leave.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm telling you, trying to find ways to make you want to leave. Jeez.
Like I could tell that he didn't want me there, because I told him about my feelings, about how I felt, about how I truly felt. And yeah, and I didn't get laid off after that. Because of that, I was actually transferred to a different department, which fixed things in a way. But in that short period of time, right after,
Yeah, and well, I don't know if I'd completely spoil it. I suppose we'll see whether or not he gets to it. So I'll be curious to hear what it is that he has to say.
I told him about my feelings, how I felt and everything, about my mood, yeah, he just completely used it against me. And he even asked employee to micromanage me for that short period of time, and that was such fucking bullshit. I hated it, and it. I honestly.
Yeah, and definitely something like that I do think is too bad. For real, yeah, just do think that something like that is too bad.
Cannot believe that fucking thing happened. It's just you can't even be your true self in these types of situations. You have to really pretend in life. It's crazy. Um, through certain friend groups, through job interviews, to actually working, you have to put up a front in order to succeed. And
one thing that I think is very interesting about this, and I'll see if I can find it, but it's essentially it's social consequences. It really is. And what I mean by that is that it is just how there is, like I was saying earlier on in the video, that the human being is the creature that has the most impact, is the entity that has the most impact over your quality of life. So if you don't act in alignment with what makes other people comfortable, in effect, those other people will make you uncomfortable, essentially. So let me just see if I can find this real quick. And I essentially, yes, 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 yes. Okay, so I think that I have this right over here. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I do think that I have it. And I don't think that this is that old either. And I know that you can't see this one. This one I'm doing intentionally. Yes. So this is from 2 months ago. So I'm going to pop this on and I'm just going to make sure that I remember. So we're about halfway through, actually, pretty much exactly. Look at that. Well, you can't see it halfway through the other video, but I definitely want to throw this one in here if I can, and now I am don't know why that didn't copy, but okay. Weird. Let's do this one for come on. Anytime now. I am just going to, just in case. I'm not so sure why this is giving me a hard time. Production issues. Okay, so maybe I'll try this. Okay. I figured out a way around it. So here's let me see if I can even refresh the page.
So here's a harsh truth. If you don't develop the ability to be disliked, then you're always going to be trapped in the prison of other people's opinions. The ability to be disliked is kind of secretly like a superpower. If you're willing to be disliked, then you will have the courage to do the hard things that most people are too scared to do. People will judge you for whatever you do. They'll also judge you for whatever you don't do. So I say, fuck the people and do the thing. So here's a harsh truth.
So that's
if you
the
don't
thing
develop
about the whole thing about if you don't having the courage to be disliked. And there's a book on that. I never read it, but I know that some YouTubers really recommend that book because essentially that book has a lot to do. I could imagine. I haven't actually read it myself, but I can imagine that that book has a lot to do with being able to go out there and go on YouTube, know that there's going to be people that are not really going to resonate with what it is that you have to say, and yet doing it anyways. Now, a lot of why it is that I have the mask on is because essentially it's reputation. It's just its reputation at that point. And what I mean by that is that if I'm going to be going on here and saying some of what it is that I want to be saying, then it's just going to be difficult because there's going to be people who don't necessarily resonate with it, even a job, like the amount to which I agree with Life Outrage on so much. And then yet, like, if I wanted to be able to get hired by a job, then this is not going to be helpful for me to have my face in it. This goes back to what I was saying earlier on in the video, in the live stream, right? So that is going to be something that is just very important to me. Like, I don't necessarily want to be out here with my face full on out here doing all of this, talking all of this, and then having to deal with someone trying to look me up, thinking that they're smart, doing their research on me, seeing all these different videos that I have out here, talking about how I am not going to be someone that's really happy with the status quo of this pretending. And also, what I would say in regards to Mark Manson, in response to Mark Manson, about like, if you do not have the courage to be disliked, then you'll be trapped in the prison of other people's opinions. Reputation is the prison of other people's opinions. And reputation, I've even heard Robert Greene talk about like reputation is everything. One of the laws of power. I can get to you later on which one specifically it is. But my point being is that what other people think of you does matter. Their thoughts and their feelings about you are going to have the greatest impact on your quality of life. As I said, if you don't make other people comfortable, they will make you uncomfortable. I don't really like it. I wish I could do whatever I wanted, regardless of whatever it is that other people thought about me. But I do depend on other people as I am living in the society in an apartment that I didn't build, getting money from other people who are receiving money that I don't have a way of receiving myself. I'm trying to do my own projects here, but easier said than done.
And I even start thinking to myself, like, people who are like in really high positions at a company, I am pretty sure they must have to bullshit their way through so much just to get to the top. And
Yeah, I would agree. As I was saying, being able to get a promotion as well, have to be all like the company is infallible, and you like working there as well. You know that you can't come off as though it is a net negative experience for you of you being at that company. That you like it, that like I said, it's infallible. That they are the best among all of their competitors. I used to think that that was ridiculous, and I still do. Although it almost kind of has to be that way, considering the way that people are. I mean, even I can see it in, yeah, there in many different areas of life. I was going to say in politics as well. If you're a part of a particular team, then you have to be a team player through and through to the end. Right?
I could never fucking do that. My brain is just telling me that I just can't fucking do that for simply of survival. The fact that we have to pretend in life for survival is fucking crazy. It's fucking wild. I don't agree with the idea of that. I don't think it's supposed to be normalized, even though it is. But we have to fucking pretend, unfortunately, in some capacity, in every way.
And as I like to say, it be what it be podcast. It be what it be. I don't like it, but it be what it be. I totally agree. I do think that it's crazy that we have to pretend to survive. As I was just saying, you have to. You piss off these other people, you make these other people uncomfortable, they're going to make you uncomfortable. They're going to come after you. They're going to affect your quality of life. And then all of a sudden now you're the one that's up, dare I say, shit creek without a paddle.
Way. Because nobody wants to hear about your feelings. Nobody wants to see your true self. People only want to hear what they want to hear, and it's that you are in a good mood and that you are fine, so we can keep the world running, so you can keep working, so you can keep making money. And that's the only way to success. And I feel, and for example, if somebody is,
Yeah. And I wonder how much of that is in a Western or in a indirect society. I wonder how much of that is. So
unemployed, and they're like at a group gathering, and it's not even about unemployed. Sometimes it's just because the person works at a, you know, a part-time job or whatever, or works in something that's not deemed as successful. You know, you could say the truth, you know, more power to the people who just say the truth. And some people will feel insecure about where they work, and they're going to have
yeah. So he has a bit more to say on this one. So just managing the copyright.
to pretend to people like family members that ask, or other anybody who, because, you know, everybody that you meet is eventually say, what do you do? What do you do for work? Like, that's literally the first question that people say when
This message is consultant approved.
It's serious work to keep the park this fun. Make it twisty carnier, right?
There we go.
Yes! But when I see their smiles, I'm overjoyed.
I do not have
Joy.
YouTube Premium
We're serious about fun.
on this profile.
A new coach, and a game to get to, and rear cross traffic braking, and peace of mind.
So
when you meet someone, you know, it could be even, you know, like I said, family member or a new person, a new friend, whatever. They'll always say, what do you do for work? What do you study in? What college do you go to? It's always these stupid ass fucking questions that don't fucking matter. And some people will feel insecure, like I said, and they'll just lie. They'll straight up lie, and just make up a fake story because they're insecure. And some people will even pretend, even on their CV.
or I even guess like that they will say that, oh, like I just don't have much going on tonight or whatever, because they just don't really want to reveal too much or much of anything at all. Yeah, absolutely. I even see it on reality TV that there's the people that are defined by their occupation. If you're like on Survivor, for example, you're a firefighter, you're a lawyer, you're a doctor, you're a writer, you're a journalist, you know, like it's like you and your occupation that definitely defines you. And when he's saying that it doesn't really matter, now I wouldn't go that far. I don't know if he's being hyperbolic or if he's just being colloquial, but I would say that sure, like there's other conversations that are more in depth that I would like to have with other people. Although I also find that to be difficult to have with certain people because the values can be quite different. So, such as, for example, talking about religion, like I said, I don't believe in religion. So if I'm running into somebody who fronts as if they do or actually does, and I say fronts as if they do because I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people out there who outwardly claim that they believe in religion but their actions are not in alignment with that at all. So in other words, they're fronting. But anyways.
For example, just to get a job, they have to lie on their CV to get jobs. And it's so fucking bullshit that we have to fake it in life just to make it. You know the saying, you know, some people, I despise people who say the saying like, fake it till you make it. You know, these are the type of people that just support the system, that support this.
Yeah, I also really don't like that as well. Although I like the rebranding of that to an extent of don't fake it till you make it. Take who it is that you want to be and practice being that person. I like that way better.
Pretending in life just to get a job, get into whatever. It's so fucking stupid. Oh, and another thing about pretending, a lot of people will also pretend when it comes to dating and relationships. Relationships, not really, but I think mostly when it comes to with dating, people will put up a front.
Yeah, definitely. I want to let him finish his thought, but certainly people will pretend to be into what it is that the other person's into in order to create that connection and that relatability and to be that match in order to get into that other person's pants in order to get access, sexual access, frankly. So, as a sexual strategy.
When it comes to dating, and people will try to build this personality about them. You know the the term like Riz or something like that, and you're gonna have to like be that type of person. I guess you have to be charismatic. You have to be charming in a way, just to get the attention of someone. Because
Now, that I don't necessarily mind in terms of, but partially I am also quite extroverted as a person, so I don't necessarily mind being charismatic in that regard or being engaging, even though I think that what is engaging or interesting to different people is that there's a large degree of subjectivity to that, and then there's a large degree of, I mean, if I'm saying, for example, I'm being the showman, I'm saying, "Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are about to have a dastardly show for you here today, where you are going to be seeing some of the greatest stunts that you have ever seen in your entire life. You're going to be hanging on the edge of your seats as you can wait and you can explore and experience in person right here in this theater. It's going to be fireworks." Something like that. That's, having the personality. And some people could say that's like, having game. And there's a lot more that I could say about that, but we're just going to stick on the topic of pretending. And yeah, that people would pretend to get into a woman's, well, yeah, man and a largely, but even women do it too. And those people generally get more results. And if I say that the people who pick those people, like who pick people who sell them a bill of goods, are making bad choices, some people can really not like that, that I've said that essentially. But yeah, certainly that happens in dating as well.
because that's the only way apparently to get the attention of another person is if you are like that, if you have Riz, if you are charming. You can't just be your true self. Of course, you have to pretend in some way. You have to say all these fake things that are not really you, just to get the attention of another person. And then once the relation starts to set in, you're not really that person after all. You start to show your true self.
And so, yeah, just even then, yeah, certainly. Outside of the charisma and the energy, although some people do get complacent, like, oh, okay, now I've done what it is to attract the person or what have you. Now that I'm in, I'm just going to get complacent and what have you. And we're not really going to be doing like the date nights or what have you, or putting in the same level of effort as was put in the beginning. So I definitely do think that there's that, but I am more so just the whole like some people creating a personality to get what it is that they want essentially and using it as strategy, mirroring the other person as strategy. But anyhow.
But what I hate is more when you start dating, you have to be this certain person, um and it's so fucking stupid. Like, why do we have to be another person at the
To to stand out amongst the supposed competition and to as a way of luring someone in and showing them your honey, as it were. And I mean that like, attract with honey and in that regard. I forget what it is. It's attract. Yeah, okay. There's an issue with this keyboard. Or my keyboard in general. Interesting. Interesting. One other way that I could try to look for this. Attract with honey than vinegar. Attract with honey than vinegar. Okay. I won't go too much into the technical difficulty I ran into, but regardless. So, nonetheless.
Just when you first meet someone, it's just like I said earlier, when you first meet someone, they'll say is like, what school do you go to? You know, where do you work? All that stuff, all that superficial bullshit. You know, you have to pretend because that's normal. That's the expected way to interact with a new person. You can't just be your true self. You know, you can't.
Yeah, and one thing about being one's true self, I do think that there's a certain level of decorum also. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to be going around and like farting and burping around other people in that regard necessarily. I do think that there's a certain level of decorum as well. But yeah, yeah, there definitely are some behaviors that don't affect anybody else. And yet, that's not good enough. You have to conform. And the people who conform are the ones that get rewarded. They're the ones that are able to get X amount of dollars a year. That's what he's talking about being successful. They're able to get X amount of dollars per year. They're able to get the promotions. And so they're being rewarded for conforming, even though they may end up having a midlife crisis afterward because they went from place to place to place to place being told what to do, going from being a child with their parents to going to being in school and then going to being at work and what have you, and just being passed around. And there's also the government, of course, as well, being passed around and being in all of these different environments of other people telling you what's what and telling you who you should be and what to do instead of doing it yourself. So instead of being who it is that you want to be. And then then there's the reputation, there's the social consequences, other people thinking that you're weird, and then again you make other people uncomfortable, they're going to make you uncomfortable. And so social consequences, it impacts your quality of life. If you have a bad reputation, then it's going to be all like, oh, it's this guy, like, he's weird, or he's this, that, and the third, and what have you. Oh, it's this guy, oh, don't hire that guy because I heard like that there were stigmas around him and this other candidate doesn't have any stigmas around them. Don't hire that guy because my whoever I know in my network told me something about this person, and I just am going to automatically give a certain level of trust to that person who's in my network or my friend or what have you, and I'm not going to cross-reference the information with that other person or make my own judgment. So reputation can really precede somebody, and reputation is not someone's character. But here we are.
You can't be your true self at a job. You can't be your true self when you start dating someone. You can't be your true self with certain friend groups. You have to pretend because that's the only way you can succeed. You can succeed in all those aspects if you pretend well, if you can be a good actor, if you can fake it till you make it. And those are things that I struggle to do. I can't, I went through all those experiences and I'm able to pretend.
So, yeah, I do think that it is unfortunate in that regard, for sure. I wish that getting a promotion at work or even getting hired could just be more so about like what it is that I bring to the job as opposed to in terms of skills. Certainly, I don't want to be mean to anybody, but at the same time, or I can be pleasant, but at the same time, I shouldn't have to like really. I don't like the idea of like having to just something like, "Hi, how are you?" Oh no, I'm not really that good. You know, there was someone DIE'd in the family, or I well, some people may think it's degenerate, but went to the casino and I came out negative. We were betting on the sports game, it came out negative or what have you, so on and so forth. Like, oh, I tripped and I got injured and don't really feel that great, and so on and so forth. Like, um, got into a fight, with my in my relationship, you know.
I just don't like the fact that we have to pretend. Every time I pretend that I'm okay, even when I'm not inside, it kills me. It kills me, the idea that I have to hide how I truly feel or hide my true self. Or for example, at a job where somebody makes, an offensive joke, or an offensive or racist joke like I talked about before.
Yeah, I'll see if he talks about it again here. If not, then I'll raise what that was.
You have to pretend that you think it's funny. You have to laugh, because if you don't laugh, people are going to look at you like you're weird, because majority are going to be laughing, because if you don't laugh with them, then you're not fitting into the group. And this is something I struggled with within my last job. I was told by my boss that I was.
Yeah, if you're not fitting into the group, so you're not a team player, so you're not about company culture, you're not like really getting along like with the other people and what have you, and that could be grounds to fire you.
Wasn't fitting in to the group. I couldn't even be able to, just come to work, do my job, eat lunch by myself, and then continue work and then go home. That was not an option for him. Even though that's what a job is supposed to be. A job is supposed to be, you come to work and then you go home. You come to work, you do your job well, and then you come home.
I mean, I wouldn't say exclusively that's what a job is supposed to be, but I would say, yeah, so long as someone is doing a good job, then yeah, I'd like that to be the case, but unfortunately, it isn't. They want you to have a certain level of camaraderie, and depending on where it is that you're working, some places are going to be more or less tolerant about that, because some places they basically want to work with people that they're friendly with. And I think that that's also because there's a lot of laziness in terms of putting effort into socializing. I think that there's a lot of people that are very socially lazy, and so as a byproduct, they're relying on work to have friends, which I think is, or even relationships, which I think is ridiculous. But anyways,
that's what I was hired for. But according to my previous boss, I had to fit in. I had to be part of the group, and all that bullshit. I had to be part of company culture, even if I didn't want to. It's so fucking stupid how, like, for example, there was one time.
that one I will say, being a cultural fit. You have to be a cultural fit. You have to be like us enough. Otherwise, we don't want you here. And so, literally, when someone is, it's one thing about work or DIE, work or go homeless, then DIE. It's another thing about someone can be willing to work, but then they also basically have to wear a mask as well, for the sake of making the other people comfortable, and for the sake of being a part of the company culture, and for the essentially pretending and putting on this performance, what is effectively the performance of your life. And if you don't do that, then that's going to be problematic. I do think that that sucks. I do. Because you're not really going to be a cultural fit every single place that you go, even if you can do the job. And you don't necessarily need to be like dry. You can be pleasant, but it's not like you're going to be these people's best friends per se all the time. And I'm not going to say it's impossible to find your work bestie or your actual bestie. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but it is, it's just riskier environment, because it's essentially, are you going to shit where you eat? And that's a risk. All of these relationships are a roll of the dice, no matter what you do, no matter how much you study, no matter how much in terms of like uh content like this, interpersonal interaction and what have you, no matter how much you look into it, at the end of the day, it's going to be a roll of the dice.
Where everybody was, they were serving free, they were giving everybody free pizza. They were serving us free pizza. Everybody was wondering, well, not everybody, but a few people were wondering, why the heck am I not eating pizza? And I just didn't feel like it. You know, I just didn't want to. I had my own lunch, so it's my choice. I can do whatever the fuck I want. And because of all those things, I ended up just eating in my office after that. I didn't eat with the group anymore. I didn't feel comfortable being around these people, these fake ass people.
Yeah, that's just another one of those scenarios. Oh, come to the company gathering, come to, our bowling night or our company or year-end celebration or what have you. Come to these different events. If you're not coming to those events, then it is a bad look in that it is going to reflect as though you're not happy working here. Therefore, that costs you opportunities.
But yeah, I like a lot of the times I have to pretend in some capacity, like for example, the whole good morning, hello, how are you, and all that bullshit. But there were also other aspects where I wasn't afraid of just, standing my ground and resisting to pretend, to fit in just for the sake of it, just for survival. Because apparently that's an extra requirement at work. You have to pretend to fit in and stuff. So yeah, I guess you have to fake it till you make it. That's the only option. I think it's bullshit, but that's how it is.
And there you have it. There you have it. There you have it. So, yeah, I think that is very unfortunate for sure. I definitely do think it's very unfortunate. Like you're saying, it's another element. It's not just doing the job. You have to fake it till you make it. You have to fit in and what have you. The people have to like you. There definitely is a social element to it as well. And I don't necessarily like that either. And so it's just not so easy just to be like, fuck what other people think. As I was saying with the whole Mark Manson about like, oh, just if you don't care what it is that other people think, then and if you're not afraid to be disliked, then you will be able to not be stuck in the prison of other people's opinions. And yet, unfortunately, reputation is a prison of other people's opinions. And like you said, when he's not afraid, sometimes you stand your ground. Sometimes you may have to. Sometimes is it worth it? Sometimes it just is. It just is worth it because you get pushed too far. Enough is enough. And you have to stand your ground. Otherwise, it gets past the tipping point. You really just become a shell of yourself. It's ridiculous in a lot of ways, man. And it also doesn't really help if your boss is emotionally immature, which is something that I definitely do want to cover later on. But I want to keep this around the 1 hour mark. So just going to say to you all to encourage you to, if I can. Yes, and it looks like I can. So before I end this off right now, definitely wanted just to encourage you all to check out the channel and certainly to take a look at some of the other socials. We have some other links over here: Instagram, Threads, Twitter or X, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Otherwise, that is what that be what it be for today. And feel free to look forward to some shorts throughout the week and possibly another live stream on fundamentals later this week. Peace.